Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we get into this next episode, I want to make sure that you all have had a chance to, if you haven't yet, check out the other shows on the Extreme Performance Outdoor Network that this podcast is now a part of. If you search Extreme with an X at the beginning, Performance Outdoor Network on any major podcast hosting platform that you usually listen through, you should be able to add it, and all the shows on the network will automatically be coming to you from then on. And if you haven't yet, you really should check out some of the other shows. There's a lot of great stuff on there, particularly revolving around houndsmen and lots of entertaining stuff. So if you haven't yet, give it a listen. And in doing so, you'll also be supporting a podcast network that gives back to hunters and houndsmen and really does a lot to advocate and support hunters' rights. So definitely do so if you haven't, and enjoy. I also want to give a quick shout out to the mastermind behind the Devils of Dirt Hawking Club, Mr. Brett Reese, for his help in also designing all the new logos and stuff for this podcast. And for those of you that enjoy his merch as much as I do, you definitely want to head to devilsofdirthawking.com. There's a limited edition design that is on sale right now. It's a collaboration with another friend of the podcast, Bobby Yaga Crafts. So you'll definitely want to check that out before it ends here before the end of the month. And yeah, definitely get you some ordered. I know I am, and I'm looking forward to getting it. And for those of you that are wanting an extra fix of content from this podcast, as well as find a way to support and increase the sustainability of the podcast as well at the same time, head to buymeacoffee.com/Falconry Chronicles, or go to the Would You Like to Support link on my website at falconrychronicles.com and sign up for the Extras membership. For only $10 a month, you'll get at least a couple extra episodes exclusive to members, and one of which usually is a video episode as well. For those of you that have already signed up, thanks again so much for that. It's helped out a lot, and hope you've been enjoying the Molting Tales and Falconry Folly series and have been getting something out of it and enjoying the new content. So, like I said, thanks again so much. And for those of you that aren't signed up and aren't getting a chance to hear some of this stuff, well, like I said, you're missing out. You should definitely give it a chance anyway, and at least give me a chance to earn your extra support. So anyway, like I said, for those of you who already signed up, thank you so much, and hope you continue to enjoy it. And now, on to this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast.
Anyway, my hawk got really frustrated, and when he does this, when we're not seeing a lot of rabbits, but there's birds around, he's going to go after birds. That's really the only way he goes after feather. But I saw him do a really long flight across the Platte River, and he went into some trees, and 30 minutes of trying to call him with my lure and whistle, and I was throwing food in the air. It was like raining food around me, and he just wouldn't come.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, and this is, I believe, the last episode that I had yet to publish that was recorded at last year's NAFA meet, and this episode was recorded with my friend Jenni Buckley, who I've been friends with for several years now, and coincidentally is also the planner for this year's upcoming NAFA meet. And here pretty soon there should be a new NAFA Hawk Talk that I'm going to record with Jenni, and that should be released pretty soon after this episode is released, so be on the lookout for that. It'll kind of go over some of the different things that are planned for this year's NAFA meet that's going to be held in Liberal, Kansas. So if you're planning on attending, you'll want to tune into that. So just be aware. And it was nice getting a chance to catch up with Jenni, though, at last year's NAFA meet and record this, and hopefully we'll get a chance to record another one at this year's meet as well. We'll see, but got a chance to sit down with her again, get some more stories, and talk dachshunds with her in a little bit more depth since she runs those, and cover some of the same stuff that I've been covering for a while, but and some other things as well. So anyway, we'll just go ahead and turn things over to this conversation with Jenni Buckley, and like I said, stay tuned for that next Hawk Talk, where we'll be discussing some more of the things that'll be happening at this year's NAFA meet. So anyway, here we go. How are you? I mean, it's been a minute.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, living the dream. up to my elbows in manure or some kind of animal shit at any given time, but I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you guys have kind of found your own little version of paradise there.
It is. It's great. I love it. We have, horses and a bunch of chickens and raptors and dogs and kids, and it feels like a little bit of country living, but I'm 5 minutes from Target, so it's exactly how I want it.
Yeah, I found that I don't know, that hybridization or that balance, I don't like, I like where I live because, I do have neighbors, but I have 1.5 acres, 1.6 acres. So like I can see the neighbors. They might annoy me sometimes, but it's not like an everyday.
You're not on top of each other.
Exactly.
And we have found in our neighborhood, because they're all like 2 to 2.5 acres, that we are much closer with our neighbors now, like friend-wise, versus when we lived on top of our other neighbors.
Yeah.
It's just like once you give people enough space to do what they want to do and no one's all up in it, like complaining about stuff, then people are much happier.
I've pretty much thought over the years that a big reason why we have so much or an increasing amount of like wars and just violence in general is because we're starting to live more on top of each other.
Yeah.
And basically, like, if we could somehow find a way to spread back out again, it might be a little bit better, but I don't think we've kind of reached the point of no return.
Yeah.
I referenced so one of the ones that I just recorded like a day or two ago here, I referenced that segment that Bill Burr has in one of his routines or whatever. Have you seen any of his stuff?
I don't think so.
He talks he talks about his ultimate plan is for population control. We were talking about cruises beforehand.
Yeah.
He's just like, you send people out in a bunch of cruise ships and then they magically sink somewhere. so they just start sending people out on cruise ships, sink them. 80% of the population has gone by that time when we're back to being like kind of square one or whatever.
Like a last dinner kind of thing. A sunset cruise.
Obviously he is way funnier whenever he tells it, but yeah, no, I have to laugh because I mean, and what's technically funny is we're technically not even close to being anywhere near like overpopulated if you're just looking at the coverage of the earth.
Yeah, and death rate, death rate is still outshining birth rate at this point in a lot of areas. I mean, there's obviously areas like India where there's actually a lot happening over there. But
yeah, there's certain continents that it's a little bit more swaying one direction more than the other, I think.
Then there's like Japan where they're worried about them just like going extinct because no one's having children anymore over there.
Right. And then they've gone to all this trouble to build like their skyscrapers and stuff continually up because they couldn't expand outward anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that's not solving it's not helping our issues with losing land and hunting spots.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is, but anyway,
a massive die-off.
But see, and that's the thing though, it's like even though like even if a bunch of people like did just magically like pull a Thanos and snap the fingers, all the land has still been developed and lost. So I mean, it would take like a lot of years for that to eventually just kind of grow back over and for the animals to move back in. But
it's healing. Nature's healing itself. Yeah, that's why I think COVID did some really great things about like getting people to work remotely, and they've discovered that people are really good at working remotely most of the time. But maybe that keeps them from building huge office buildings continually because they don't need them anymore. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Hopefully.
I think there's a lot of companies that are still trying to make people come back into offices and stuff, strangely enough. I don't know why.
It's just so weird. It makes people so unhappy.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that. It makes us unhappy to have to go to work. I don't know. It's like...
But it's like, it's not just going to work. It's, the commute and the fuel costs and just... if you could just work and not have to wear pants.
Yeah.
It just little things makes people really happy.
Yeah. I mean, it's the audacity of people. Why should we have to wear pants at work? Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. It's a good point. Now, I've thought about that a lot. I mean, and of course, there's always going to be jobs that you just can't do that remotely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be certain industries, certain professions that you're always going to have to go to a workplace.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know really though. I mean, I've talked about this recently with some people that, you know, it's just, I don't know what the solution is going to end up being because, you know, for as many people, you know, and for as long as our sport has been in existence, like it's really surprising that we have the number of people still involved in it that we do. But like we keep having a growing number of people coming in and we keep losing more and more spots.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, eventually are people only going to really be able to hawk starlings and squirrels or, you know, I mean, I don't know.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate it just, and like you want to get really mad about development because it's your hawking fields. But then at the same time, I mean, we're contributing to it too by having kids and people have to live somewhere. And it's what a time to be alive, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an interesting time to be alive for sure. And, you know, not to parrot like, you know, what some of the more popular podcasts all talk about and stuff, but it is true, you know, with, and, you know, that's been one of the things that I've liked seeing is does this problem truly exist everywhere? And the answer is unequivocally yes. Yeah. And literally every country is dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah.
And
some more extreme than others.
For sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't, like I said, I don't know what the solution is, but I mean, I guess rather than dwell on that, we can talk about more fun stuff like soap, for example. Like what made you start like wanting to make soap?
I don't know. It was one of those 2020 things when we're all trying to find something new to do. And I was just thinking like one day I just picked up my bottle of shower gel and I was just looking at it for whatever reason. I don't know what possessed me to do that. I was thinking I don't know what any of this stuff is. And then I don't know, fell down a wormhole about like bad things that you can put on your skin. And I just thought, maybe I'll just try to make soap and see how that goes, just to see what happens. And then I had a weird idea to just color it. And I like birds. So it was just, I don't know, it all just kind of fell in place. And then, you know, enablers on Facebook were like, you should sell it. And I was like, of course I should. And then here we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, has it been productive for you? I mean, has it been... I
mean, like I'm not feeding my kids with, you know, I'm not feeding my family with the proceeds from soap making, but it gives me something to do that's, you know, I feel productive. I feel like, because, you know, I basically manage our farm at home and that's what I do now. And so there's no, it doesn't affect anybody outside my family. And even like a lot of what I do, my family doesn't necessarily notice because they're not outside with me all day doing all this. It just felt like a way to contribute outside of my house, I guess, but in a non-pressure kind of way where I can do it whenever I want. So basically I make enough off of it to keep it going.
Yeah. I mean, what I found, you know, with this wonderful thing that we call a podcast
right.
too. And so, you know, it doesn't matter what endeavor that you try and do.
Yeah.
If it's not a hobby.
Yeah.
Like even if it is kind of a hobby, but even if it's, you know, if it's kind of past the hobby status or if it's a different kind of thing in your life,
it becomes unfun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't eventually reach the point of it becoming self-sustaining or rewarding in some other way where you're getting some kind of positive reaffirmation from it or something, it's like, why am I doing this?
Right.
And I must stop.
Yeah. And even just like, I mean, it's a lot of work to make soap, but even just hearing people say that they love my soap and this is their favorite soap, that's enough. That's all I need.
Sure.
But I'm also not going to be like, okay, I have to make soap at these different times during the month, and just to keep, if I sell out, I sell out. I'll make some more.
Sure.
And people will come back, and I don't like the pressure of having to do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And in the meantime, if they need to wash their naughty bits with something else, then they can,
they can do that.
Yeah. They can go to Walmart and pick up some Dove or something and do what they need to do, But yeah, it's, no, I mean, it's cool. I mean, I think our world would be a much better place if there were more people in the world that could just simply think of something that they could constructively do and like give themselves some degree of a like purpose outside of just work and family.
Right.
Because I think there's this negative stigma that people have that if they do anything else but pay attention to their family and their kids, they're being selfish. or how dare you not do. I'm like, look, people, like, did you ever think that maybe you should be a little bit more selfish?
Oh, absolutely. And you're honestly, with raising kids, you're not doing your kids any favors whatsoever. If you make your whole personality and you revolve your life around your kids, you are not helping them, actually. And Nick and I decided that a long time ago, before we even had kids, that, we're going to still be parents, obviously, but we're not going to lose our identity in the meantime. I want my kids to see that, Nick is still the most important person to me. Like, he's my number one. Without him, then everything falls apart. So by making each other like the priority, then our kids, they're there and they're thriving and doing great because of it. And then they get to grow up and see that, I don't know, your life should not revolve around your kids and lose your complete identity over it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing is, people need to understand that, even you can have a number one, or you can, have someone that's extremely important to you, but no one person should ever, that should ever be someone's complete world.
Exactly. Exactly.
And, kids these days, I think, part of the problem personally, and don't worry, everybody listening, we'll get off this rant here in a minute, but I mean, this does pertain to falconry to some degree too, but like, kids need to grow up knowing that they're not princes and princesses,
right?
And there needs to be that kind of humbling factor,
right,
growing up,
which is brings falconry into play once you're and that's one of the reasons we got horses too, was to teach our kids that, hey, listen, things don't revolve around you. You still need to work hard. And there's, even with a bird too, you have to weigh it, you have to hunt it, you have to feed it, you have to do a lot of things. And it doesn't really matter if you just don't feel like it today, or it's a little cold outside or whatever. You have to put yourself aside and just understand that there's things bigger than you.
Yeah.
And I think that's also really important to kids.
Yeah, I mean, they need to understand that the world is, it's a small world, but it's also very, very large. Yeah. And there are billions of other people in the world and billions of other things in the world that don't really care about you or, and how you conduct yourself.
Right.
And you need to find your place in your own way.
Yeah.
And still be, or at least hopefully be, a productive member of society in some way, shape, or form. Fortunately,
that's not the way things are going with, I hate saying kids these days, but with kids these days.
I think that it's going to be interesting, seeing how the next like 10 to 20 years develop. But I mean, as far as everything else goes, though, I mean, like at home, I mean, how have you personally been able to kind of balance like the more, because I mean, I still see what you're up to, through Instagram and stuff and crap like that. I mean, you do have a lot more on your plate now with like your horses and everything else. Are you trying to integrate any of that into like your falconry life at all, or does it still kind of have a separate place now? Currently,
it still has its own separate place. I think it would be really cool to hunt off of horseback, especially with Icelandic horses when falconry is illegal in Iceland, so it's not really something that's done. I know of one other falconer, Helga, out in California, who she's from Iceland and she has Icelandic horses and she flies the Harrises and she hunts off horseback with her Harrises. So, it's a very like niche thing, but I think it'd be really, really cool to. I just have to get my horses used to having a bird flap wings right over their heads, which not a real natural thing for them to have to deal with ever. So that takes a minute.
Well, and that's been kind of another thing that I've kind of picked up a little bit on, and I still know absolutely nothing about. But like, talking to guys like, Harry McElroy and some of these other people I've gotten a chance to talk to that have incorporated horseback, into their falconry and stuff. Like, I mean, it's interesting though, because, that's one of the questions I initially had was like, well, how hard is it really to condition the horses to the bird and vice versa and stuff? And the people for the most part have been like, well, it just kind of happens. It's just like anything else. And I guess it makes sense because, I mean, horses are pretty intelligent. Most breeds of dogs are pretty intelligent. I mean, there's always the asterisk marks,
right,
to everything. But, I mean, the point is like, if you can present the right situations and conditions, most animals can learn to work with each other.
Yeah.
So, I was just curious if you had kind of explored that at all.
I really should get more on that. Because I think it would be really fun, and you're right. I think horses, they can. It's weird what freaks them out and what doesn't. Like I have one horse who, his previous owner did some mounted shooting over, and so I feel like if you can shoot guns over their heads, then maybe a flappy bird isn't going to be a big deal. But you never really know.
Yeah, because I mean. The one thing's an object and the other thing is like something that they can tangibly see as another living thing.
Right.
Yeah, that might or might not screw with them.
Right.
Yeah. Like
my mare, she'll spook at birds that flush from the ground, but birds that flush from a fence post right next to her, it's fine. So I don't know. I can't even begin to get inside the head of a horse.
Yeah, no, and it's a different. I've always been told it's for lack of better saying, it's a different animal.
Yes, you're correct. It is a different animal.
Entirely, but no, I mean, like I said, I'm always interested to find out, as how people balance their lives with different, and it's not like this is something that has been like. Something you've been conditioned to. I mean, I'm sure it's been an adjustment because it's a fairly new thing for you. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that you moved into this house and this property and stuff.
No, it was end of 2020.
Yeah.
And then we got our horses end of 2021.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you're still figuring it out too.
Absolutely. I've never had horses before. I used to ride as a kid and rode a little bit in my 20s, and then we just decided we were going to get horses and we're going to make it a family thing. And it has definitely been a learning experience along the way. But falconry has also helped me with that too, because I'm so into animal husbandry. And, falconry is a very specialized animal husbandry. So it's helped me kind of develop knowledge in that in an area that I've never really had to deal with before.
Yeah, I mean, you're already kind of preconditioned to have to make exceptions to cater to another living thing.
Well, I always say not falconry, but husbandry is a fluid thing. So it's never just, you have to do it this way. You must, no matter what, even at the detriment of the animal. And
yeah, because, I mean, depending on who you ask, I'm sure there's certain ways that you must do things, but I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the evolution of things like falconry and everything else is, I'm pretty sure that if, guys like Frederick II would have seen how we do some things today and he had those things at his disposal, he probably would have been more than happy to make some changes in his own personal practices. Anyway, but yeah, so I mean, you're still pretty much You're still flying the same Harris?
Yeah. Yeah. It's made it really easy, actually, because with as many things as I have going on at home, it's nice to have a bird that I can fly when I'm able to. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I'm going 2-3 weeks in between flying, but if I only have 2 days a week to fly because I'm getting up to other stuff, then he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. He's just there, and we go out and have fun together, and it's made life very easy, actually.
Yeah, I can see that, and whereas it seems like the last handful of years especially, it's just been, I don't know, by default, I've almost just had to screw myself in some way, shape, or form to cater to my circumstances, you know, but yeah, no, and have you ever really gotten a chance to fly very many? I mean, I know you've had a pretty consistent, you've had pretty much the same bird for several years now. Yeah. But I mean, I can't remember the last time that we talked. I mean, had you ever really flown like any secondhand Harrises or anything like that early on?
I did try to fly one. It was a huge Harris from an abatement program, and it just never really worked out for me. She would just watch things run by and wouldn't really commit to it. And I never even got the two of them flying together because I couldn't even get her to chase game on her own. Mm-hmm. So I sent her back.
Yeah.
She just didn't work out for me.
Yeah, it's I've just found that, I mean, granted, everybody knows that like secondhand birds in general always present their own sets of challenges.
Yeah.
But I know for me, like the last couple of Harrises that I've flown have been, secondhand birds and stuff. And like, this season I'm flying one for a friend and like Harrises in general have this reputation, of course, for being like the easiest bird imaginable, blah, 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 whatever.
They're really not.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, and especially these secondhand Harrises because they're so smart.
Yeah.
And they get so much more conditioned, I think, to their people that they initially grow up with and everything.
Yeah.
They're just so much more social and like cliquey.
Yeah, that's a good version, a good word for it.
I've noticed it's just, in a lot of ways, the juice isn't always worth and I've even, had this conversation with like other really experienced Harris Hawk people and stuff. And it's just like, by the time you get the bird figured out to where, they will fly for you at a certain weight and whatever, it's usually a much smaller window and, they're still not going to like you in a lot of ways as much as like their original person and everything.
Yeah.
It's been, interestingly enough, for me, it's been some of the best lessons that I've learned the last couple of years have kind of been from Harrises that other people have flown that I've then flown myself. And I just didn't know if you had kind of had a similar...
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure it probably taught you a lot, though, right? Like, to some
not
degree.
Really, honestly. I tried her in a huge range of weights, and I could not get anything from her. Mm-hmm. And it would have been nice. She was huge, and she had huge feet, and would have been really helpful to my male on jacks. But no, it didn't work out. She was essentially a vacuum of food at my house, and that was her purpose. So,
well, I don't know. That's strange, and that's something else I've noticed too. Is luckily most of the Harrises that I've flown had such slow metabolisms that, like, they didn't hardly eat much anything.
I actually made the joke the other day that my Harris is an air plant. He doesn't have to eat anything at all, and it's like he gains weight somehow.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's like. Yeah, they even like see a chick or like see a mouse and they instantly gain like 2 ounces.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. It's phenomenal though.
Yeah. It's just what cracks me up is I know for me, especially with these other Harrises that I've flown kind of secondhand is they just figuring out sometimes where they'll perform is just so much more difficult.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I know for me, at least I have learned quite a bit in that regard. I mean, the one thing I still really want to do is fly a passage. I've still not ever flown a passage Harris.
Yeah.
I would like to do that sometime.
That'd be cool.
But
I would like to see that.
Because ironically enough, I keep hearing from more people that fly them on a regular basis that they actually get along with dogs and stuff better.
Yeah.
Than, like the captive bred ones even.
Yeah.
And I would like to experience that, for the first, like get my own, set of sample size, so to speak, with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, whenever you initially got your Harris and started off with kind of, well, I guess this more or less would be a good time to branch into kind of the reason why we're having this second episode with you here, other than the fact that, I haven't seen you in forever and just want to catch up anyway.
Right.
But, you've been running dachshunds for a while also.
Yeah.
And, we've been kind of talking a little bit about that. And, whenever you initially got your Harris and your dachshund and stuff, were there any issues that you had when you introduced them?
I mean, on a smaller scale, it was more frustrating. My Harris, he hates dogs, like every other Harris Hawk, and screams at him and hates him. And he never went after my dog, but it did take probably a full season for them to really start to work together well. It was really frustrating because Newt, my dachshund, get really excited when Rufio, my hawk, would catch something, and so he'd run in, and Rufio was terrified, so he'd let go of the rabbit and fly off, and I hated that, and I got really frustrated thinking, is this how it's going to be? What have I done? Mm-hmm. And by the end of that season, they were working together really, really well. So I didn't really have... my bird never attacked Newt or anything, so that was helpful. I didn't have to deal with that, but just small inconveniences, really.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, if he had, though, I mean, if your dog's going to experience that for the first time, probably a smaller male Harris is probably one of the best types of person.
He's probably not going to die.
Yeah. I mean, it's, like I said, this is one thing we've talked about over and over again, but I don't think people can hear enough that, I mean, there are certain species that are a little bit more predisposed to have some potential issues with that kind of thing. And with Harris's, it's just it's either an all in or an all out kind of thing.
Right.
It's like, but strangely enough, there have been other people that have, more knowledge and experience that they'll forget than I'll ever have, that have flown, dachshunds and Harrises and stuff together that, it's kind of funny because sometimes birds will spend like a whole season just hating life with a dog and stuff. Then they'll say, like, for some reason that second season, like a dog could literally just walk all over them and it wouldn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't bother them after that. It's so weird. It
is weird. Yeah. It's just, once they click together, it's so great. But up until that point, you kind of want to smash your face into a table going, what have I done? Is this how it's going to be now?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's that whole perseverance thing to some degree. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. But I know, like, for most people, they have there's a common denominator that they say, like, generally once you get that right situation where the bird can see the dog be productive for them, then it usually is okay after that.
Yeah. And I would definitely agree with that. Newt makes noise when he smells a rabbit, or especially when he flushes a rabbit. And Rufio figured that out pretty early on, that if Newt's making noise, that there's going to be a rabbit that appears at some point. And I think that was really helpful. And just one day it just clicked, and it's been great ever since. Yeah. I know. Like when my dachshunds make noise and stuff and start barking and get one up and everything, I usually just go ahead and yell, ho along with it, just so the auditory cues are all there for the bird and stuff also. Yeah. But yeah, I know for me, like this season and last season, because I mean, both of my dachshunds are still relatively, super young still. Yeah. I mean, my one just turned 2 and the other one just turned 1. So they're both still figuring, babies. Yeah, they're both still figuring things out too and getting used to things. But like for this season and last season, for me, it's been all about pretty much the dogs and their development more so than anything else.
And so I know for me, it's been really rewarding seeing them kind of come into their own and seeing the differences and everything. But I, from the sound of it, it sounds like you've had kind of an interesting experience with the diversity of the two that you have.
Yeah. So they're both really good in the field, and they're both really good for different things. Newt tends to follow scent trails a little bit better. But LZ, my newest dachshund that I got from another falconer last year, she's really good at going into tighter spots to flush the rabbits out of. And so they actually work really well together as a team. And introducing the second dog to my team, Rufio actually didn't care. He just kind of went with it and was like, okay, I guess here's this other dog now. And yeah, that went really well. But home-wise, Newt is definitely a little bit more personable than LZ is. And it's just dachshunds. Little dog syndrome, I guess.
Yeah, I jokingly say it's the German in them.
Yeah.
Like I said, I love some of my German friends, but I jokingly, lovingly, say that it's the German in them sometimes that makes them so stubborn and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like there's certain things that I've noticed, and I think that personally, just from my personal observations and my just huge breadth of knowledge and stuff, with this topic now that, I've been dealing with them for a whopping, 2 years now. I think a large part of it depends on, kind of their experience with the breeder and stuff too.
Yeah.
And what their initial experience, after whelping and the whole super early puppy stage, I think goes a lot into their early development and how quickly they develop also.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. It's, it goes back to the whole nature over nurture conundrum. But yeah, the right breeder is definitely important. Both of these dogs are really well bred. And then, I think LZ has a dog in her line that can kind of contribute more to maybe being a little aggressive towards people she doesn't know. So that's made it interesting to have people to our house. But that's a very diplomatic way to put it. I get it though. Because the fact of the matter is this breed was initially bred for aggression and bred for that specific purpose and needing to be overly aggressive and have an overly, high prey drive and stuff for what they were asked to do. And I think that aggression and prey drive does go hand in hand. You can't have, I just don't think that you can have a breed that is completely docile and doesn't have, and maybe aggression's not the right word, but, I think you know where I'm getting at. Tenacity, something like that. Because you can't have that prey drive and you can't be gung-ho about hunting if you just don't care. Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's like, when I took my dogs to that terrier trials earlier this year, like the weekend of my birthday, that was the first time they'd ever seen a raccoon. And they kind of were just like, whatever. I mean, they ended up kind of barking at it and being a little, whatever, but it took a lot of prompting. Now, if they would have used either a rabbit or a squirrel, it would have been scary. It would have been game on, But yeah, you can't expect a dog to necessarily care about something it hasn't been predisposed to care about. Right. And that kind of goes with genetics too, I think. Yeah. If you can't necessarily expect a dachshund that comes from like non-hunting lines to necessarily want to be a hunter for you. I think you could get them to that point, but I don't think it's going to be natural. It's going to take a lot more work. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's going to be more of, it is a job to them because they're working dogs, but I think it's going to feel like even more of a job if they just don't have that genetic background.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I wish that there were more breeders of this particular breed that were breeding more for the hunting side of it.
Yeah.
But, luckily though we do have like the Teddies of the world and stuff though that did, kind of, start that. But,
yeah.
But so like getting back to your personal experience, with this with this lovely breed that we so adore. First off, what was it that made you initially want to get a dachshund?
I hunt rabbits, cottontails, and I wanted to not work as hard.
Yeah.
I want somebody else to do the work for me. And, I can only make my husband and kids come out with me so many times and hand them sticks that, I needed something else. And so I decided to get a dog. And it seemed like the logical choice for me was a dachshund because I'm hunting rabbits. And honestly, it was kind of a weird journey for me because I've had dogs my whole life, but have never had them in this capacity. So, so I was I'm still friends with Tyler Sladen, and he was talking about breeding Zoid. And so I talked to him and said, "Oh, I think I want one." And I was still very nervous about the idea because I'm nervous about starting new things. I'm concerned about failing and not doing it correctly. And this is a dog. This is a living thing. If I screw this up, then what? I can't just pawn it off on somebody else. So that was an interesting journey. But going back to the whole genetic thing, Tyler bred really good dog, and it actually wasn't that much work on my side to get him hunting and working and trained in that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I found that, like I said, the early teachings of a pup can really either expedite or really slow down the development of a dog in the field for sure. That's just been my very limited sample size of experience so far too. But so, in other words, so sure you wanted a dog to work for you and stuff, but was the terrain that you had more suitable to the dachshund then, as opposed to another, say a beagle or was it more the traits?
Of the traits. Mm-hmm. I don't see myself as a beagle owner. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of people really like them. I know that dachshunds are very barky and whiny, but I can't handle the bark of a beagle. It's very grating to me. Mm-hmm. I don't. Honestly, this was 7 years ago, so I don't really remember my thought process of why I chose the dachshund. It just seemed logical. I think I watched Tyler hunting Zoid, and I just liked it. The dog doesn't range out super far, which is, when I'm flying a Harris off the fist, I don't want a dog going very far away from me. Just stay close by, find a rabbit right here, and we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't help when a dog flushes a rabbit 150 yards away.
Yeah,
right?
It's not helpful.
No.
It's helpful for other species of bird.
Sure.
It's not helpful for something they're flying right off the fist who has a burst of energy and then doesn't do real long chases.
Sure.
It's not like a red tail or a golden even where they're long distance flights. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And that was kind of my decision to finally take the plunge into that world too. It's just, I can see the writing on the wall to some degree that I was eventually going to have to start doing a lot more solo hunting and stuff too. Mm-hmm. And for my area, it's just a lot more conducive to that kind of breed than it is most others. And I still love my Vizslas, but they, it's just that initial know enough to be dangerous decision, initially. But yeah, so as far as then whenever you. I want to talk about some of the things that I know that I wish I probably would have known a little bit more about before I made my decision to take the plunge into dachshunds. But let's talk about some of the things, like what were some of the initial things that you experienced whenever you first got your first dachshund that you wish you would have maybe known a little bit more about?
I would say that a hunting intact male dachshund is virtually impossible to house train completely. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You can think you're the best dog trainer in the world, and it's just, they're going to pee in your house. And so you have to start to budget for stupid things like male dog diapers. And it's, I don't know, I feel like I have to make excuses anytime someone comes into the house where I'm like, oh yeah, he has to wear that because, I don't know, that's his breed. That's what he does. And my husband, he's a saint. He really tries to be patient with it, but he hates the fact that we have a dog that wears a diaper at home. So I wish I would have known that a little bit more before going into this. Yeah, that's one of the big ones. And then I would say the other thing, and I knew going into getting a dachshund that they have fragile little backs. I don't think you can breed a dog into that body shape without putting some strain on their bodies. They have really long backs and they have little short legs. And I had heard a couple years ago that there was some genetic testing that you could do to look for a certain, I think it's like a dwarfism gene that they can carry, that it makes them more predisposed to back issues. And Newt didn't carry that gene, but I will tell you, back issues are still possible without that gene. It's just the way that they are. They have weird little bodies.
Yeah. It's like a friend of mine says, aptly at one point, it's like, yeah, they're bred for destruction. Like this.
Yeah.
But I mean, the only thing that you can really do to mitigate that, I think, and because we talked about also this last night a little bit that, you can buy all the ramps and all the doggy steps and stuff in the world and everything. They're not going to use those things. Like, they're going to jump up on the couch. They're going to jump off of it.
Oh, yeah.
And unless you are literally going to consume every second of your time, effort, and energy, or put up a block in every single thing that they can jump up on or jump off of or whatever.
They're still going to find a way to mess themselves up.
Yeah, it's just, they are a high energy dog and they have a lot of tenacity. And when they want to do something, like, they will figure out a way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just their breed.
They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you've ever even seen a dachshund sleep, they can't even just sleep in a normal dog position. They tie themselves into some sort of pretzel knot.
Yep. Which is usually on their back. On their back
with their neck flopped over. Like, what? I don't know what they're doing, but it's like, yeah. So Newt had some issues last year in early 2022 where, and like Newt is in shape. He is a slender, muscular dog. We put little dog stairs up and put little ramps everywhere. And still, one day I heard him yelp, and I went to him like, what did you just do? You were just standing here. And I was trying to feel around on him. And at first, like, he was really tense in his abdomen. So I thought, I don't know, did you eat something weird? And I'm just going to keep an eye on this. And then over the next several days, he started to show some mild paraparesis where, like, he wasn't really able to move his limbs as well. And then in his back legs, they were starting to slip out from underneath him. So I ended up taking him to a veterinary neurologist. And turns out he's got IVDD, and now he has that like kyphotic posture where he's got that roundness of his back. And we didn't opt for surgery at the time, so we did 6 weeks of kennel rest and medication. And I don't know, keeping a hunting dog in a kennel for 6 weeks was the worst. I will say that's way worse than the fact that he pees in the house sometimes. I hated that. But yeah, like, it's just, these are just things that you have to kind of expect to happen. And it's not that every dachshund is going to have back issues. It's just that you always have to kind of think, maybe this could happen, and prepare, because it's expensive. Even just medical management in the kennel was expensive.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I've talked to my wife a little bit about, like, this is a breed where we might actually want to maybe consider trying to maybe get some pet insurance for or something. And like, the thought still crosses my mind from time to time. Yeah. Because I mean, like, so my one is 2 and the other one's 1. And like, if I'm going to do it, I probably should just go ahead and like do it. But at the same time, it's another expense. And, you know, it's like, is it worth it, or do I take the chance?
Right. And man, if you opt for surgery, it's insanely expensive. Yeah. I mean, they do an MRI on your dog. Yeah. Beforehand, and which they also have to do anesthesia and stuff. Right. And, you know, because no dog is going to sit in a tube for like 30 minutes, you know. It's hard to get people to do that. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, I mean, it's a thing that's going to end up costing you, you know, thousands upon thousands of dollars. And I mean, to be honest, I haven't even really looked into pet insurance. I don't even know if that even covers it, you know. Like, I'm sure there's probably some Cadillac plans that you can can probably get for your dogs, but I'm sure they're insanely expensive per month, you know. Yeah, I would say anything that's more than just helping to cover yearly visits and vaccines and stuff, I think you are probably going to start to get into some higher premiums there. So then you have to ask, is it worth it? Because again, it's not going to happen to every dachshund. It's not even going to happen to most dachshunds. Mm-hmm. But on the off chance that it happens to yours. Yeah. And then when it does happen and you're faced with that decision, what decision do I make? Right. Do I make the decision then to go ahead and, you know, say my goodbyes, or do I get this risky? Because I mean, it's not a guarantee too that your dog's going to be 100% after the procedure too. And it's quality of life at that point, because if I took hunting away from Newt, he would be destroyed inside. I can't even pick up my hunting pants from the laundry, like clean hunting pants, without him losing his mind and like, are we going? Yep. Are we going? Yep. And one time he hurt his eye, and I had to not hunt him for 1 week while his eye healed. And I mean, it's like I was kicking this dog in the face every time I was leaving the house. He was so sad. And so, yeah, if they can't make it through surgery well enough to continue their little hunting lives, is it worth it? Yeah, it's probably not. Yeah. Because the ones that are the truly good hunting dogs, for sure, like that, it's in their blood and they love it. Mm. Yeah, you might as well just go ahead and it's almost more humane just to go ahead and say goodbye. Yeah. You know? And it's a terrible thing it almost makes me like just, you know, want to just get emotionally distraught just talking about it a little bit, because like you do get such an amount of enjoyment, like seeing, you know, them hunt with you and everything. And like, man, I can't imagine. No, and it's not a job to them. They don't, these dogs don't see it as a job. It's their life. It's what they want to do. It's what makes them happy. And just to take that away from them, and then just the sadness of leaving the house without them all the time. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. It's emotional to think about. I'm not crying, you're crying. Yeah, one of those kind of things for sure. But yeah, I mean, going back to I mean, like, as far as the other stuff though, yeah, I mean, I learned very quickly, and thankfully I got a tip about the belly bands and stuff for my males. And yeah, we were talking about having, as a male, kind of figuring out, like, you go and you start buying maxi pads, and they're not for your wife anymore. You know, it's like, you know, what how much absorption do I need to get from these, and all that kind of stuff. You start learning all these weird, funny little things. And yeah, if it wasn't for the belly bands, it would be hard for me to continually, because mine will mark all day. Yeah.
And if I did not have the belly bands with them, my whole house would just smell like a urinal.
Right. And Newt, he gets to the point where going back to hunting is what he lives for. I think he has figured or like convinced himself that every time I walk out of my house, I'm going hunting without him. Mm-hmm. And he flies into a rage and just goes around and pees on everything. And so, you know, I have chickens, I have horses. I'm going outside a lot during the day. So if I don't have him wrapped up, it's going to smell like I live in a kennel.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is it's not like they're a dog that you can just bring outside with you and they'll run around and follow you and stuff. Like if they're outside, they're going to want to start like...
They go right to work.
Yeah, they go right to work. They go hunting. And like every so often... my lovely little dogs will slip out the door as I'm letting like the other dogs out to go potty and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a 20-minute like constantly yelling, trying to get them back. Yeah. And you know, my experience is after a while, if they didn't have their e-collars on, they're not going to listen.
Yeah. It's hard to get them back.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Like if they don't have a cue, right. You know, like, all right, they don't feel that vibration. They're not going to start making their way back.
A reminder.
Yes. That loving tap on the shoulder, so to speak. Yeah. So is that kind of the same experience that you had then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's scary because we live in coyote country, and that is another real threat to him. My mom actually she has dachshunds, pet dachshunds, and a couple years ago, she actually lost one of her dachshunds just by letting them out into the yard, and the dog went around the side of her house, and I guess there was coyotes over there and grabbed her dog and dragged it off, and she found it, unfortunately, deceased at the edge of her yard because they couldn't get her over the fence, and they dropped her. But it's a very real risk, and so having your dog run off and go to work without any means to collect them back, it can be a big hazard. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, luckily, I'm glad that I let my dogs develop to the point first before I started using it, because like, you know, I mean, my one dog, he took a lot longer to develop and kind of come into his own, start gaining confidence and stuff. And I'm glad I didn't start using it until it was needed. Yeah. But it became very apparent when it started to be needed, though. Like, you know, and well, you mean, you know, Jared too. Like he jokes that Horace can stop semis. Yeah, he has the power to. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you the story. I've already told the story on another episode, but like it's scary sometimes. Like you need a way to recall them, and they pretty much mostly all the unanimous decision on that is yes, you need to run your dachshunds eventually with some form of EV collar or something. Otherwise, they're not going to listen.
Well, and even sometimes they don't listen anyway. Last year at NAFA, I had my dogs out and we were hunting this little like abandoned homestead type setting. And LZ, she ended up going underneath this like abandoned house. It's falling apart, and she smelled something under there and went under, and I was lighting her up, and she was not coming out. She was barking under there. She found something. I would have to assume it's like a raccoon or a skunk. And so I'm hitting all my buttons, going from tone to vibrate to shock to, back and forth, calling her. And I hate that feeling when you think, how do I get her back? I can't crawl under this house and I can't move it. Luckily, I think it took her about 20 minutes to come back out, and she just popped out like, hey, what's going on? Yeah. But sometimes they will just let their nose override everything else, and they'll just go. And I don't love that part, but also I think like, oh, she's hard at work. She's doing her job and she's really committed to it. But
yeah, well, and then there's other guys that I've talked to that actually have lost dogs that way. Yeah, and even weren't able to actually be able to dig their dog out of the hole and stuff. Yeah. And when they were able to, they found them curled up dead, in the hole.
Yeah. And I don't know how many people who run dachshunds. I think it's pretty common that they actively encourage them to go into holes. Mm-hmm. I don't with my dogs.
Well, not everybody wants that hassle.
Right. And I tend to really concentrate and focus on potential risk of things. It does make it a little stressful to live life that way, but I don't know. That's how I do. And just picturing a dog going into a hole and not coming back out, that's a little too much for me.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not really worth it for me to do that. They go into other stuff. They'll go into wood piles, and because at least like a wood pile, I can move.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But
it might take you a whole day.
Right.
But,
it's not going to be dirt caved in on a dog that I'm frantically trying to dig out. But
yeah. Yeah. And like I said, as far as the other mitigating factors with different parts of your decision-making process to decide to want to get one or not, I mean, the whole going into holes and going to ground thing, is probably way low on a lot of people's, totem poles of priorities and stuff. But yeah, I mean, as far as the other stuff, I mean, obviously we already covered the housebreaking part of things, and it's kind of funny. And I remember like whenever I was talking to Teddy about that and stuff, and she just looked at me and she goes, "Well, that's your own fault." and this is one of the things that I love her for. It's just like, and I'm just kind of laughed, and she was just like, "Yeah, we don't have inside dogs, we just, keep ours in a outside kennel, and the way she was describing it is probably something I could live in, and probably be happy, but she was like, yeah, I mean, I go out and I make sure that I spend time with them and I play with them, you do whatever I need to give them attention and stuff, but our dogs don't stay inside, and there is always that. So for the people who are listening, considering this stuff, you might want to maybe give it some consideration.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I asked Hannah Dahl, falconer in Kentucky, who's a very great dog trainer. I messaged her one day and I was like, hey, can you give me some tips on how to housebreak my dachshunds inside? And she has a couple of dachshunds as well. And she said, essentially, if I knew, I would tell you. And so, it just solidifies that if you get a dachshund, there's a real solid chance that you're going to have pee somewhere in your house. Yeah.
And there's a big reason. I mean, some guys don't even run males for that reason.
Yeah.
And they think it's a little bit better for females. Yeah. I wouldn't know because I've never had a female dachshund yet in my whopping 2 years of dachshund experience.
Yeah.
But that being said, though, if they did start going in the house, you don't have the belly band option, at least with the female too. It's like
they're wearing pants.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But so, I mean, for anyone listening, these are just, considerations. And what do you think? I mean, out of curiosity too, like, what do you think the best time frame? I know this is very breeder, kind of opinionated as far as this goes, but I mean, what do you think is the best, like, I don't know, how many weeks old do you think a puppy should be whenever you get one?
I mean, I think obviously the bare minimum would be 8 weeks, but I kind of think that puppies should stay with their moms just a little bit longer. 8 weeks is essentially right after weaning, and I don't know. I think that dogs are a little bit more well socialized if they're able to stay just a little bit longer, even up to just like maybe 12 weeks, I think is a little bit better. But at that point, you start to kind of run into valuable training time as well. So I don't know. I think 10 to 12 weeks personally, but I know that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree with me. So
yeah, I mean, like I said too, I mean, a lot of people just defer to the breeders for that kind of thing too. But I would actually tend to agree with you. I mean, I think that the smaller breeds in particular, like dachshunds, do a lot better if they're, and the other thing too is if the breeder is doing things already with them, like kind of starting to train them, and especially if you're getting one from a falconer who's breeding these dachshunds and stuff, and they're already starting to work them on rabbits and scenting and things like that, and they're already doing those things. why not let them go ahead and just take care of that precious 8 to 12 week window, and whenever you bring it home, it's like you don't have to, pull out, in my case, the non-existent hair of like, doing the extra crate training and being miserable.
Right. And then if anything goes wrong, you have someone to blame on.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's not my fault.
Yeah, none of this is my fault.
No, it's never my fault.
It's Tyler's fault. No, just kidding, Tyler.
But yeah, no, it's funny, man. Like I said, it's, we're never short on our opinions as falconers and dog owners and stuff, but
we're capable of contradicting our own opinions.
Oh yeah. Sometimes we catch ourselves in our own lies, whatever. But
sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But no, I think that covers most of the things. I mean, is there anything that else you can think of that you think would be good to cover in your experience with them so far, as far as just anything we haven't thought of yet to talk about, or?
I will say, with little dogs that are short to the ground, you should carry a metal flea comb with you anywhere you go, because they are going to get every burr, every pokey thing locked onto them. Also, they make a product for horses called Shoshin.
Yeah.
That's really great. I will spray my dogs down like maybe once a week before a hunt. And then if they come back loaded with those like sand burrs and
stick tights.
Yeah, I hate them.
Yeah.
Spray them down again and start to just work them out with that metal comb. So that's a significant portion of the hunt as well.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up having to buy another one of those actually too, because eventually they get stuck in there so much too, where you start bending the comb teeth and stuff.
Yeah, I just bought my second set actually.
I feel you there. And I have used, I'm an idiot though. And what I found too is that sometimes I forget to use the stuff before we go out in the field also.
Yeah.
Because I found that if I don't go ahead and pre-spray and do that stuff before I get to the field or even leave the house, like I don't want my hands all greasy before I start.
Also, from personal experience, don't spray it in your house.
Yeah.
If you have hardwood floors or tile or something, because you will die slipping on it.
Yeah, there is that too. Yeah, you don't want to do the whole Tom Cruise risky business thing across the floor or whatever, but... Well, yeah. No, it sounds like we covered, like I said, I mean, part of this series, and this was low hanging fruit for me, because I've come to for all their faults, which I mean they do have some for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a very fun dog. I mean,
I love them.
A very fun breed, and it's so funny watching them just process and work and try and figure out ways to get what they want.
Yeah.
And then watching them develop and develop that excitement, and there's nothing to me that, I mean, so far, one of the most rewarding things is seeing my dogs kind of slowly develop and come out of their shell and get so excited and start barking. And when they get a rabbit, and then they get a rabbit up and they just go nuts and and just start running after. It's so funny watch them try and run after one too.
They try so hard. They do. They're such great dogs. They work so hard and they try so hard, and it's physically demanding out there for something that has 2-inch legs.
Sure.
It's hard. And even out here at this NAFA meet, some of the places that we were hunting, some really thick cover, and they're sticking with us the whole time. And I mean, they have to dolphin jump through a lot of this cover, and that's hard work. They're soaking wet. It was 38 degrees yesterday and raining, and I had to do that river crossing yesterday, and they were still trying to follow me in. So I had to have someone stand on the shore and hold them back, because you could tell they weren't real excited about it. But they're going to do it. They're going to work. They're going to work for you. And so don't ever let the size of them deter you.
Yeah.
Let other things deter you from them, but not that.
The constant smell of urine,
right?
And just the constant puddles that you're going to find randomly.
Burrs, urine, and back problems.
It might be enough of a deterrent to save some people a lot of grief, and also grief for the dog too.
Right.
Yeah, let it. If that's too much for you, then let it go to a house that they're fine with the constant urination and everything else.
And they are vocal.
Yes,
very vocal.
Yes,
they'll bark at everything.
Yes, literally everything.
Yeah.
And
even for no reason. They'll just bark.
Yeah, and it's just like they think they see something.
Yeah,
you take them outside and you literally show them nothing.
Yeah,
and literally they're still gonna.
They had thoughts of something from earlier that they're gonna bark at.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. No, I think this has been another good, productive, wiener dog conversation for sure.
Yeah.
And give some more people, some more food for thought and stuff. But, so yeah, let's go ahead and end this. I want to hear how this river thing happened though. I saw the post and whatever. We can go ahead and kind of, wrap up on this little story and probably come close to calling this good. But I want to hear how this happened yesterday.
Just the area that we were hunting. It was cold. It was, raining again. The rabbits were sitting super tight. The 2 rabbits that we did flush, I actually tripped over one of them and then it flushed. And then the other one, my friend Jordan hit with a stick and it flushed. So they were sitting really tight. And with the rain and everything, I think the dachshunds were having a hard time using their noses. But anyway, my hawk got really frustrated and, when he does this, when we're not seeing a lot of rabbits, but there's birds around, he's going to go after birds. That's really the only way he goes after feather. But I saw him do a really long flight across the Platte River, and he went into some trees, and 30 minutes of trying to call him with my lure and whistle, and I was throwing food in the air. It was like raining food around me, and he just wouldn't come. So we got the receiver out. My friend Jordan had to go back to the car to get it because this is the first time I've ever had to use telemetry on my hawk, my Harris. So he comes back with the receiver and he's right across the river, and it would have taken a long time to get into the car and try to find a place to cross and get back over there. And so I just had to commit. And my other friend James, he was really nice and forded the river with me. Kept me feeling like I was a little bit safer. And luckily it was only thigh high. And when we got over there, Rufio was just sitting in a tree, threw out the lure, and it was kind of like I guess. And he came down on it, had to ford all the way back over again, and popped him on the scale, and he got something that was around 35, 40 grams. So I'm assuming it was a small bird because you don't get a flight that long and that determined after a mouse on the ground.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always tell when the that butterfly flop and drop on a mole or a mouse or something.
Just falls down.
Yeah, they just kind of flutter down to the ground or whatever.
My boots are never going to dry out, so I will say by the time this podcast airs, they will still be wet. So give me your tips and tricks.
Yeah. No, I've made the investment in one of those like boot dryers, like Rim Cabela's or whatever.
Yeah,
it's one of the best, like $100 or whatever it was I've ever spent.
I need one. Maybe I'll go get one today.
Do it. Seriously. Like it's a game changer. And like I got one of the ones that's got the 2 like taller ones for the boots, and then the 2 shorter ones for normal shoes or gloves. And it's so you can be drying for like a pair of gloves or shoes and also a pair of boots at the same time.
Does it warm them up too?
It's got heat in it also.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I might have to give you 5 minutes or so after this. I know, whatever. But no, it's good stuff. It does have a heat. You can turn the heat off and on.
That sounds glorious.
Yeah. No, it's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's a total game changer for sure.
All right, I know what I'm doing today. It's windy as crap outside.
I'll depending on how much time we have, I may or may not make a quick trip over there with you or something. But I mean, basically, it's a game changer. Definitely get one. But yeah, you're right. I'm not really sure when this is going to come out, but yeah, by the time people hear this episode, they will have heard probably a very recurring theme, from these dogs, and that's purposeful.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But, and real quick too, the last time we talked, I mean, it was 4 years ago. I mean, the podcast was still in its first year.
Jeez.
I mean, it was literally NAFA 2019 whenever we recorded that first one. So, since then I've been getting like a piece of advice from people and stuff, and usually end up closing on that note. And, I mean, once again, usually there's always good advice that comes up through the episode. But I mean, now with your present state, Jenni, as opposed to, past Jenni, like,
right.
What other kind of piece of advice do you think would be good to pass on to people, with kind of where you're at now as opposed to before, or, something else that might have, come up in recent years?
I will say, going back to the whole dog thing, don't let it scare you. I think people get into their heads, or maybe that was just me getting into my own head about trying to, run a dog with a bird, and it seems like a lot of chaos, and do it. It's great. It makes your life a lot easier, and don't get into your own head about it, which is really easier for me to say than do, but just do it. It's great.
Yeah, no, and I can attest to that too. I finally just had to say, screw it, I want to do it. And, it also helped that my wife saw the picture of Hades as a puppy and was instantly like,
they're so cute.
Yeah. And this is another funny story too for people also. Another thing to be aware of, if you do sleep with your dogs,
I won't do it.
Yeah, well, my wife has grown fond of that as well. And every so often you will get an occasional surprise at night also.
Oh.
Yeah, and
another reason why I don't.
Yeah. There's been a few times where I have been very unpleasantly surprised by and the way they subtly need to tell you sometimes, or don't tell you.
Yeah.
That they may or may not need to go out or whatever. Just be aware that you might be left a present occasionally.
Oh, that's
at night
horrible.
Also, yeah.
So my next piece of advice: don't sleep with your dogs.
Yeah, I've vetoed it for a while occasionally, but somehow or another, the little frickin' things always seem to find their way back in.
They get in there. If they climb under your sheets, they go all the way to the bottom, they press their bodies against you, and then just roll all night. I don't know if they sleep or if they just roll.
Yeah. Well, and the other fun thing too is if you leave, of course, you're going to leave the belly band on them also.
Right.
Mine, what they like to do is they like to come up right up to your shoulder, and they like to kind of curl around, and they sleep with their head kind of close to the waist. So the belly band that smells like urine, a little bit, is kind of right next to your neck and shoulder area. So, you kind of have to almost start sleeping on the other side.
I really am standing by the don't sleep with your dachshund statement. Let's go back and edit that in as my piece of advice. Don't do it. It's gross. They're horrible.
Yeah. I mean, each of us have our own trials and tribulations to work with. But I mean, the funny thing though is like, it's whatever. I mean, it's a very rare thing that does happen occasionally.
Yeah.
But yes, if that is another thing that you are not willing to deal with, yeah, you're probably right. Don't do it. But I guess that's a good note that we can go ahead and wrap on, though.
Heck yeah.
It's been a fun talk, and I'm glad we got a chance to catch up.
Likewise.
Yeah. It's always
great.
Fun. Yeah.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's always a fun hang. So, well, I guess we can go and run to Cabela's real quick and see what else we can get into, I guess.
And then some afternoon drinking is in order, I think. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably lighten up a little bit on it tonight because I'm going to have such an early drive in the morning, but yeah, it's almost
later.
It's 15 till noon, so it's technically okay.
It's fine. Yeah.
So
it's NAFA. It's like camping rules. You can wake up with a drink in your hand here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, same. Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah,
for sure. Cool. All right, well, let's do our running and see what else we can get into.
Sounds good.
All right.